The sound that ended my marriage wasn't shouting. It wasn't crying. It wasn't even the front door opening. It was what happened after. The front door unlocked. The handle turned. Another man stepped inside. He never knocked. He never rang the bell. He simply walked in. My husband looked up from the kitchen table and smiled politely. Then he asked, "How did you get in?" The man standing in my hallway looked down at the key still in his hand. His face went white. I'd forgotten he still had the spare key. People think affairs end because someone gets careless. A text message, a hotel receipt, a forgotten toothbrush. Mine ended because I forgot I'd trusted another man with a key to my home. My name is Julia. My husband's name was Eric. The man I betrayed him with was Mason. Mason and I met after my car broke down outside my office. He owned the repair shop that towed it. He was funny, patient, the kind of person who never seemed rushed. When my car needed another repair a few months later, I asked for him specifically. That was the beginning. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became excuses. Excuses became an affair. Eric traveled often for work, usually 3 or 4 nights every month. I told myself nobody was getting hurt. I was wrong. At first, Mason never came to the house. That had been my rule. Hotels, his apartment, anywhere else. Then one winter afternoon, the power went out while I was at work. The pipes in our basement started freezing. Eric was in another state. I panicked. Mason drove over immediately. He shut off the water, wrapped the exposed pipes, probably saved us thousands of dollars in repairs. When I thanked him, he laughed. "You should really have someone you trust with the spare key." Without thinking, I handed him one. "It'll just be for emergencies." He nodded. Of course. Neither of us planned for it to become routine. Sometimes he'd stop by before I got home. Water the plants if I'd worked late. Bring in a package from the porch. Check on the house after storms. Eventually, using the key stopped feeling unusual. It simply became easier. Months passed. One Saturday, Eric came home early from a conference. He wanted to surprise me. Instead, he surprised both of us. I hadn't told Mason the trip had been canceled. He texted me earlier that morning, dropping off the drill I borrowed. I never saw the message. Eric and I were grocery shopping. When we pulled into the driveway, everything looked normal. No strange cars, no surprises. We carried groceries inside, started putting everything away. 10 minutes later, we heard the front door unlock. Click. The handle turned. The door opened. Mason stepped inside carrying my cordless drill. He smiled. "Hey." Then he saw Eric. Everything stopped. The drill slipped from his hand and hit the hardwood floor. Nobody moved. Eric looked at him, then at the front door. Then quietly asked, "How did you get in?" Mason looked down, still holding the spare key. His hand slowly opened. The key landed softly on the floor. I... Nothing came. Eric looked at me. "When did you give him a key?" I couldn't answer, because I honestly couldn't remember. It had happened so naturally, so casually, so long ago. It was for an emergency. The words sounded ridiculous the moment I said them. Eric nodded slowly. "I believe you." Another silence. At first, Mason quietly bent down, picked up the drill, placed it beside the key. "I'm sorry." Eric smiled. Not angrily, not bitterly, just tired. "I know." Mason left without another word. The front door remained open for several seconds. Neither of us moved to close it. Eventually, Eric walked over, locked it, then picked up the spare key. turned it over in his hand. When did it start? There isn't any point lying anymore. About 18 months. He nodded once. I thought so. When did you find out? He looked at the key. About a year ago. A year. A year of family dinners, weekend trips, holiday mornings, movie nights. A year of him already knowing. Every memory suddenly became something else. The patience, the kindness, the quiet smiles. I knew someone had been here. He said softly, I noticed little things. The packages were already inside. The snow got shoveled before you came home. The porch light bulb kept replacing itself. I just didn't know. He looked at the key again. That he'd stopped needing permission. The tears finally came. I'm sorry. I know. Eric disappeared into his office, returned carrying a thick manila envelope. Divorce papers. Already signed, already dated, already waiting. He laid them gently beside the spare key, then asked something I'll never forget. Do you know what hurts the most? I shook my head. It isn't that another man had a key. He looked toward the front door. It's that he used it. Another long silence. Guests knock. They ring the bell. They wait. He picked up the key one final time. People who feel at home, let themselves in. The words hollowed me out. Because he was right. Mason hadn't unlocked the door to show off. He hadn't been careless. He hadn't been trying to expose us. He'd done exactly what he'd done dozens of times before. He used the spare key, automatically, without thinking, because somewhere along the way, my house had stopped feeling like someone else's. Eric placed the key on the kitchen counter. You know what keys really mean? I stayed silent. They're not about locks. Another long pause. They're about trust. He looked at me one last time. I gave you this home. You gave someone else away inside. He walked upstairs, leaving me standing alone in the entryway. The spare key stayed on the counter for weeks. Neither of us touched it. It became the last thing I saw every morning before leaving for work. And the first thing I noticed every night when I came home. Years later, I barely remember signing the divorce papers. I barely remember the arguments. I barely remember the last conversation I had with Mason. But I still remember that tiny silver key. Such a small thing. Worth only a few dollars. Small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. Yet, somehow, it carried the weight of an entire marriage. Because the moment another man unlocked my front door without knocking, my husband realized something I had been refusing to admit for months. The greatest betrayal wasn't that I'd fallen in love with someone else. It was that I'd trusted another man enough to give him a way home.